Oh yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Artist of Data Science Happy Hour. It is Friday, June 18th, 2021. Hopefully you guys got a chance to join me earlier today. I was live on both the Lights on Data show as well as How to Get an Analytics Job. And if you've made it this far in the day and you've decided to hang around and see me one more time, well, thank you very much, man. Appreciate having you guys here. Hopefully, you guys got a chance to also tune into the podcast I released today with Jamie Woodhouse. We talked about the philosophy of sentientism. Had a great time chatting with him about that. Um, if you guys want to connect, like hop into the Zoom room, please do. I'll be posting a link right there in the chat on all platforms. I'm excited to have all of you guys join in when possible. We're live on Twitch, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Man, super excited to have all you guys here. Man, so let's start off with a question, huh? How about we get this thing going with an open discussion? I didn't get much time to think about it today, but how about this? Let's, you know what? Actually, I saw an excellent video from Vin a couple of days ago. It was 6 things that he wishes he knew at the start of his career. Um, I guess let's distill this down and just do the top one thing you wish you knew at the start of your career. Let's go ahead and let's get started with let's go let's go to Russell first, then we'll go to Vin, and then we'll see what's up with Archer.
Evening all. Thank you, Harpreet. Glad you've been having a good day with all these other streams. By the way, I've not had a chance to catch with them given my time zone, but I hope to catch up with them in record. So the top thing I wish I'd have known when I was younger is don't pay too much heed to other people's opinions when they are away from your core purpose. You know, I found that the human psyche tends to want to diminish those that it finds challenging. So if you're doing something that's putting others outside of their comfort zone or challenging them, and they feel at risk from what you're doing, they seem to almost certainly want to immediately diminish. So I don't mean do not listen to criticism, especially if it's constructive, but try to be able to delineate between criticism that seems to be unfair, that's for the advantage of another single person or group of others, versus criticism that you can actually take constructively and get better from. Especially if that's happening an awful lot, it can become quite a heavy wave crashing upon you and can get you down very much. So be very pragmatic in your view of criticism.
I like that. That's great tip. So just to reiterate the question, the top one thing you wish you knew at the start of your career. This is just to play off a video I was watching from Vin the other day. He talked about the top 6 things he wished he knew at the start of his career. Vin, I know you did this video already, but let's distill it down, man. What's like the top one thing?
I think the top one thing would be that all the technology skills you think matter are just transient. And long-term career longevity wise, you really have to look beyond technical skills, because if you just do technical skills, it's like being on a treadmill, because you have to run really, really fast just to stay in the same place. And technology continues to move, continues to advance. And if all you're doing is working your technical muscles, then you are only going to get so far in your career. At some point, you have to transition, because the number of opportunities that you're competing for just start getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the thing I wish I'd have understood very early on is that, yeah, technical skills are critical for the first 5 to 10 years of your career. But as soon as you hit year 5, the things that begin to define your career and either limit it or really turbo boost it are very, very little to do with technical skills. It's a lot of how you can apply those technical skills. But beyond that, there's a whole lot of, we call them soft skills, but they're not soft. I mean, that's what makes your career boost ahead. And you get paid a lot more for your softish skills than you do for your technical skills in the long run.
I mean, it's definitely like a misnomer. I don't know why they call it soft skills. I mean, they are hard because like it's not something that you could actually be directly taught. It's something I think that has to be learned through experience, which is, I mean, that's hard in itself. Um, I had a question from somebody earlier today. I was on, doing a bunch of stuff, LinkedIn Live, and somebody said something about, or the question they asked that we didn't get around to discussing, I saw in the chats afterwards, was how can you communicate to hiring managers or whoever during the course of an interview that you can learn any tool if they're listing specific tools on or specific tech skills on their job posting. How can we communicate to them that actually, you know what, I know you want these things, I might not have exactly these specified skills, but I can learn them. Does that question make sense, Vin?
Yeah, it does. You've got two hiring manager mindsets. One of them, seriously, you can't convince. And so the first thing you have to do is, if you see the skills at the very top and there's no real description of what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis, your hiring manager is somebody who doesn't really think that far past, a programming language name, a bunch of frameworks, a database, so on and so forth. And that's the person you can't convince. They're fixed mentality. They don't understand that people can learn. They themselves think that they've basically maxed out. They're at the top of the field. They will never get any better. Therefore, you come in fully baked or you don't come in at all. And there's that mindset, and you can read the job description and almost tell immediately that you're dealing with somebody with that mindset. They're just not worth it. Just don't bother trying unless you've got the capabilities they're looking for. Just don't. The ones that spend more time talking about the job and what you're going to do and what you're going to make and the outcomes that you're accountable for, those are the ones that already sort of know that you're going to grow into the role, that nobody's fully baked. And so they're going to be more open to this. One of the things you want to have, especially early on in your career, is if you look at your projects, talk about how you had to learn something on the fly as part of that project. And you've basically done that. You've said, hey, I am here. And look, even over the course of this little personal project, I went from here to here. And so you've told the hiring manager that that's something that you're capable of and something also that you're expected to do.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much for that, Vin. Great tip there. Vivian, how's it going? Mark, what's going on, man? So just to reiterate the question, it's like the number one thing you wish you knew at the start of your career. So kind of you could play with that question however you'd like, because I'd love to get a variety of responses. We'll go to Archer, then Mark, and then Vivian, and shout out to everybody watching on LinkedIn and on YouTube and also on Twitch. If you guys want to join in on the fun, please, it's an open office hour. I got the link right there in the description. So please do join us. I'd be happy to have all of you folks here. Arthur, let's hear from you.
So I would say the number one thing is definitely that some things are more important than doing the work sometimes. I'm a computer science teacher. So I came in and I was like, I have to get these kids to learn everything. They have to, do the work. They have to do everything. And over time, I realized sometimes, their mental health isn't really there, especially during COVID. I think that the mental health of your team, how everyone feels, the morale, kind of having that empathy is a lot more important sometimes than just being able to do the work and get through the day. I think how everyone feels, how everyone thinks about, the company is, way up there, a lot more than how I treated it when I first started.
Right on, man. Thank you very much. Vivian, let's hear from you on this, and then we'll go to Mark after that. And by the way, guys, questions are open. If you guys want to shoot me a question in the chat, whether you are on any one of the streaming platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitch, go ahead, type your question out, and we will get it into the queue. Alternatively, man, you guys can just hop in and join us right here. I would love to have you guys in the room with us. Vivian?
Can Mark go first? I'm still formulating my answer in my mind.
Yes, absolutely. Mark?
For this question, I like had an answer instantly pop up, and I think for me, for my career, which I knew earlier, was like the importance of your direct manager for your success in your career. So my first job as a data scientist was rough. My colleagues were like really supportive, like, wow, Mark, you're crushing it. But my direct manager just like, we were not gelling. And she was like, Mark, you're not doing well. And like really confused because my colleagues are saying otherwise. And so it really took it personally. I was like, maybe I'm not cut out for this data science stuff, right? Eventually get laid off from that job. And I start my current job at Humu. I have an exceptional manager and my career is 10x, right? And it made me realize, I'm like, oh, it wasn't me. Like, I'm more than capable of learning the skills and adapt. It's just, is it the right fit between you and the company, or the right fit between you and your manager? And that can really dictate a lot. And so I think the key thing for me from that experience was like, don't ever really take it personally. It could just be a bad match. Still continue on your goal and your dream. You just have to work at it. And so a key part of that interview process is maybe not picking the first job possible. Pick the first job where you know you have a good match, or you won't always know, but you feel pretty confident that you're interviewing them back and you're like, this is gonna be a good fit where I can grow in my career.
So when you have those situations, right, you're talking about you had kind of a difficulty with your manager. Like I've been in that situation as well. Back when I was a biostatistician, my first manager there was like a dick. Like I hated the guy. And I don't know what it was. And that relationship never got better. And unfortunately, I had to bear his just bad attitude for like 3 years before finally things changed.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was horrible, man. And it ruined my outlook on a lot of things. It ruined my self-confidence in myself and just my ability to do the work. Like how do you deal with that, man? How can we deal with like these, the diminisher type of manager, like the manager that actively, or at least seems like actively is trying to like hold you back?
Definitely. I think for me, there's two aspects. It's like, one, like you have your job at the end of the day, and this is coming from being at startups where I know any day I can be let go because the company went under, or like things change me so quickly. So I'm like, any day I can lose my job, and I'm okay with that. And I think Ben Taylor says all the time, it's like having market security over job security. And that's really stuck with me since he said that, because I think that's a key thing. It's like, that gives you the confidence to know if it's not a good fit or won't work out, you still have market security and can like find another opportunity. The other component of dealing with that is like having a strong support system. So during that time, again, like hide the pandemic, I know I'm about to get laid off. My friend's like, yo, bro, they're gonna lay you off soon. And I know that's coming up, and like having a strong support system. My wife holds me down all the time. She believes in me before I believe in myself all the time. She always bets on me. And like, if my wife can bet on me, I can bet on myself. And so, maybe you don't have a partner, maybe it's a best friend or a parent or a mentor, just like having that support network to really build you up when you're at your lowest. I think that's so key. And I really owe a lot of my success to my wife for really propping me up.
Shout out to the wives out there. Romy, what's up? We're celebrating 6 years of marriage tomorrow. Damn, can't believe it's been 6 years already. But yeah, dude, having a good wife is key, man. Having a solid partner. Vivian, let's hear from you, and shout out to everybody else. Marina, I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to. We'd also love to get your questions in, guys. So if you guys got questions, put them right there in the chat. I've got Mark in the queue there already, and just looking around all the different social media platforms. If you guys got questions, go ahead and type them right there into the chat. Go for it, Vivian.
Okay, well, I have a couple of things. So I kind of wanted to say something about the bad managers because I've been in that situation, and I definitely like followed all the advice of like stick it out, and like bad managers always find a way to like work themselves out of the company or whatever, like he'll tie his own noose kind of thing is like what other people would always tell me. And don't do that. Okay. Like for all the people out there thinking like, no, I have to be practical and the money and blah, blah, blah. Like, honestly, don't. Just like, if you're in a position where like, it's honestly that toxic, just leave. You'll be better off for it. You'll bounce back. You'll figure it out. Like, because the longer you stay, then the more like psychologically damaging it's going to be, and the harder it is going to be to like bounce back. And like that's something that happened to me. I really wish I had just, back when I realized that it was too far gone, just left, and I would have been scared out of my mind, but I would have bounced back a lot quicker. So honestly, like, anyway, that's just advice if anybody else is out there struggling with that. But also, as far as things that I wish I knew before or when I started, I guess the thing that I thought of was just that like basics are enough. Like that sometimes I felt like I had to consume the whole internet. I had to know everything. I had to like know all the things before I could legitimately be considered like a data professional or whatever. But that's not true. Like the basics are enough. Like, and if you master the basics, everything else will come. And like, and also if you know the basics, then like the other things, you'll learn them really fast. You'll be able to like dive into something you've never done before and learn it really fast and do it pretty well, even from a first shot, like if you have that foundation. So like, I don't know, just don't, I guess that's what I wish I had known is like, I don't need to get lost in the weeds. I don't need to try to like consume everything. I don't need to try to like do everything and have experience doing all of the things before I'm allowed to like feel like, I don't know, I'm competent and can get a job and stuff.
I would say that's the exact same thing I would have told myself, dude. I remember when I first started to go into machine learning, and mind you, I've got graduate degrees in math and statistics, but I went down the weeds to the extent where I started like learning about logic gates and how like computation actually happens. I don't know how I ended up there. It was just like this YouTube spiral just sending me towards like some weird stuff. I ended up in a MOOC that was Python, but specifically for testing circuits and logic gates, because I thought that I needed to know how to do that if I really wanted to understand how to make machine learning algorithms fast. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know why. You know what I mean? It's weird. But Marina, let's hear from you.
So I'm not gonna add anything new. I think both they said kind of like really good points, but I'm gonna echo on Mark thing, his points. I think having mentors is to me like having somebody that is gonna be there and is gonna like people that you can ask, right? Or you call it mentors, supporters, and not just one, right? If it can be in your company, it's a good thing because if you wanna stay there or see a different like perspective of the company, I think is very important. But also like outside in your same field or like covering several, I would say, like places where you need to grow, right? So somebody that, is gonna ask you about what your future plan, like, like covering several things, but like having mentors, like taking care that you have like a plan for the future type of thing. You have options or right. So to me, I think is important. And not one person or you call it supporters, then it's supporters. Somebody that you can, or people that you can talk and you can have advice from that they would tell you, like, okay, you can hold on this position because I don't know your personal situations or, it's time to leave. Sometimes, it just, you can't really, I think, having that mentorship is very important.
Yeah, somebody who will openly share the mistakes they've made so you do not have to go and make those exact same mistakes yourself. That is crucial. So Mark, I know I got you in the queue for some questions, but I got some questions coming in through LinkedIn if you don't mind that.
I don't mind at all.
All right, cool. So there's some good questions. And by the way, friends, feel free to join us. But Negan is asking, how important did you find the math foundation in your career advancement? So that's interesting, right? So not necessarily breaking into the field, but actually advancing throughout your career. And then she also wants to say, please share your background in science. So, I mean, two questions there. I think that first one, how important do you find the math foundation in your career advancement? For advancement, I don't think it really matters. I think for breaking into the field and for being able to execute on your job, that's super important. But for advancement, I guess that depends on which route you go, right? What if you're going like the people manager type of route, that doesn't really matter that much there. But if you're going like, the what's it called, distinguished fellow or principal, type of route, it might be more important. But having a solid foundation, I think, is super important in anything. Vin, let's hear from you on this.
I think it's kind of big. I mean, not really disagreeing with you. I got to say, if you want to get a promotion, nobody's asking what math you took. No one's going to ask you before you get a promotion to manager if you could do a little bit of PDEs. That's not happening. So when it comes to, is that going to be the differentiator between you getting held back and you getting moved forward to the next step? No, but it's how you are able to apply math and how you're able to use it to better understand not only what you're working on, but what everybody else is working on too, because that's one of the things most teams are missing, especially in smaller companies, is somebody who can do a review of just the foundational concepts behind everybody's work. Because half the time when I've come in to clean up stuff, it's because I find the problem in about 20 minutes and it's just a stupid error, and it's the same thing that I could make by myself if I didn't have someone else look at what I did and go, come on, man, and it's so you really need it. And especially as you start getting into sort of a technical lead position, you really need to be able to review everyone else's work. That makes you hugely valuable. And that's a way to advance. I mean, that's a career path. You go from technical lead to pretty much wherever you want to, because the company realizes, like, if you leave, quality degrades so fast that they're willing to do a lot to move your career forward. And so, like I said, you're never going to get a math test in order to get that promotion, but being able to apply your math skills and use them to help build better product, no matter what shape and size and form that takes, that's a career path.
Nice, man. Thank you very much for that perspective. And definitely, Vin's got tons of experience. I would recommend following his YouTube channel, The High ROI Data Scientist. It is a lot of good stuff there. Does anybody else want to chime in on this particular topic about the math skills needed for advancement? If you do, please go for it.
I have a comment on that. So like for context, I like failed a lot of math classes in community college, and it took me a while to get decent at math. So it's like not my strong suit. But the thing is, though, I know how to Google really well and like apply and learn really quickly. And so like that's really important. And I'm like upfront, I'm like, I don't know this. I just learned it 30 minutes ago, but the source says it's correct and my manager says it's correct. But I think where I play to my strengths. And so I'm speaking from someone who's currently trying to gun for a promotion right now. And the key thing, the skill that I rely on all the time is, and for context, my background, I have a master's in science and community health prevention research, really strong background in clinical research. My background's experimental design. So I know how to take a business question or a data question and to set up in a way where I know how to set up an experiment, how to test out hypotheses or find causality. And I lean into that. So like, I may not be the most technical math person, but I set up structure for you to get an answer and present that. And so being able, especially in a startup, really take really abstract things and put structure around it and get an answer. That's what's helping me get my manager's attention to be like, all right, you're on track to make something happen.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mark. And I mean, the next question that Megan had was, can you please share your background in science? And I think you definitely answered that with your response there as well. My background isn't clinical design, but I've worked as a clinical trial statistician for nearly 5 years. And I guess that's like the sciencey background that I have as well. But mine was just, I studied math and statistics in grad school. And I guess that the only science experience I had is that clinical trials type of work. But I'm wondering, let's hear from Marina. I guess Marina is like an actual scientist here. So what's your science background? And then let's hear from Vivian and then Arthur on this. Or if you guys want to touch the other question, which was about math foundation and career advancement, then we'll hit on another couple of questions here in LinkedIn. And then Mark, we will get to yours.
Just put me on the spot. And I was writing something. Can you repeat the question? It's about the science background.
Yeah. What was your background with science?
My background, So I did theoretical chemistry and I did physics, and then my PhD. I know that the other day everybody was talking about the titles. I feel like I should erase mine. So was like technology transfer, kind of like signal processing technology, like, and then so apply like physics or to like making a device to measure properties of single cells. So then I had to incorporate biology to all the, like to my thesis, to all the research that I was doing, which was kind of like signal processing, like modulation of signals and so on. So then the rest of my, this rest was, I did that like basic research at one of these small universities, like that one at Harvard, right? So I did, some of the research I did, like applying some of these principles, quantitative science type of thing, to single cells or to like infected cells and things like that. I hope this answered your question.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just that small little local college up the street
I
called
know.
Harvard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vivian and Arthur, let's hear from you guys, and it could be on either point. The points that Negan was asking was either just how important do you think math is in career advancement, and share your background in science. Then after we get to Negan or Negan, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. You can just jump in the room and tell me how to pronounce it. That'd be great too. After that, we'll go do Mark's question, and then we got questions on LinkedIn from Akash and Twinkle, which we'll get to after Mark's question. Go for it.
So I got my degree in biology, and yeah, I guess I don't know that I have like a super fresh perspective to share here, but I definitely agree with both Vin and Mark a lot that like I was actually always really good at math, but I really liked the application of math, and I think that's what's much more important. So that's like something I always liked about doing science, was that I actually got to like apply the math to a thing I was doing. And I think that that's like a lot more important in data science for sure. Is like actually understand what you're doing. Like the math is a tool, at least in my mind, the math is a tool to like find, insights or get results or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know. I guess that that's my hot take.
I like it. Arthur, also Eric Sims, what's going on, man? Good to see you here.
So I actually also majored in math and statistics. I don't have any science background. Everything I kind of just picked up online. I think that while math is important, I think that it's more about what you can do with and how you use it. No one really cares about how well you can, crunch the numbers, as well as like, what can you do with the results of that? How can you analyze it? What can, why are you crunching them? Do you understand why you're doing this and what you can do with it? And how can you actually take those, the math and convert it to some kind of, either increase in revenue or some kind of more information, some kind of actual actionable change to the company or to society or whatever it is your field that you're in.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much, Arthur. And hopefully, Negan, that answered your questions. We're going to move on now to Mark's question. Then after that, we'll go to the questions here from Akash and Twinkle. And if you guys in the room here have questions, let me know. I'll go ahead and add you to the queue. Mark, go for it.
I for once have a applied data science question and not a career question, which I'm pretty excited about. I talked to Greg recently about like how do you come up with ideas and like figure out what would be a high ROI thing. And I've been talking to our customer success team a lot, trying to figure out like, all right, they have some needs, we're expanding customers, and like handling our customers, delighting our customers is really important. And so I was like, what if I can connect our Zendesk ticket data to our product data to essentially predict customer health, or like predict when a customer will reach out. So for example, like engagement, like this particular customer always reaches out when engagement goes below this level. And so we can see a trend going that way. I can give a heads up to customer success saying like, hey, something might be happening soon. Be prepared so you can better service customer. Still in the raw idea phase for sure, but I'm just curious if anyone's ever worked with kind of like customer support ticket data, and what are some things that you've kind of seen when working with that kind of use case of like kind of pitfalls or potentially things to check out. Maybe I'm trying to pursue a problem that's actually really hard. I'm guessing it is. There might be a simpler way between that. And I'm still in the exploration phase of like, is it feasible? Can I do it? But I figured I'll talk to the great minds of the artists of data science to really jumpstart that exploration phase.
Yeah, I'll definitely punt this one to Vin. But before I do that, I was reading this book. I'm interviewing the author, Alyssa Simpson Rauschberger, and this is Real World AI. Really, really good book. And it's one of the things she was talking about. They were talking about this case study with the Autodesk and how they were really trying to help make their product better, and they really honed in on one particular thing, and it was customer queries for resetting passwords, because it was taking far too long to reset passwords, and they were wondering if they could do something to reduce that down, maybe even make it self-service. And they're talking about the importance of honing in on that question and having an exact kind of question it is that you want to answer, and being able to quantify the results. And it's escaping me the details, but essentially they use like a NLP model, which would then immediately redirect somebody instead of going to like the ticket desk for manual processing. It would just take them to like a self-help type of page. But let's hear from Vin on this one, the high ROI data scientist himself, because this is interesting. I've never worked on anything like this, and I think it's going to be fascinating to hear the results.
So are you doing usage? Are you doing customer success like customer buying? Or are you doing customer help as in, I've got a problem, I don't know how to use it, or the product's not working?
Yeah, so to give further context, customer success, so preventing churn. We have enterprise customers. And so, for smaller customers, they might go to like an FAQ, but for like our large enterprise, they have the white glove kind of ordeal. And so if they see something they don't like or confused about, they're going to be talking customer success. And what spurred this was we had an incident happen for one of our customers, and I was just involved because I just want to learn more about their use cases. And I was like, wow, they're spending hours discussing how to navigate this. It would be cool if they could just prepare and they weren't reactionary. And so that's kind of the aha moment. I'm like, maybe I could do something to help them out with this.
So I'm stealing this from Walmart. Sorry, this is my idea. I came up with this. So first things first, don't wait for it to get to the desk. You want to put hooks into your apps, into what they're actually using. Segment your users. Now, you've got smart users. I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing, but I'm pretty smart. And I've never tried this before, but I'm a software developer. I read no manuals. And so I'm going to just dive straight in. And so segment, kind of into different buckets. What kind of customer is actually using? And so segment your users. And then follow them, like your Facebook, around your application. Figure out how much time it's taking them to complete a particular task, because that's probably your easiest success metric to start out with. You'll have a ton of other ones after that, but the first one is, how long does it take someone who's just learned the system to do this task? How long does it take the average, somebody that's kind of in the middle, been using this for X amount of time? Is the amount of time that it takes somebody who just figured it out to somebody who's been using it for 6 months decreasing? Is it increasing? And then look at, and this is going to be your biggest indicator that something's wrong, look at your power users. Look at those users that are aces on the system. They're probably the people who are on that system most and who do that particular function or role or use case or journey or whatever it is most frequently, and see if the amount of time it takes them to do that thing decreasing or increasing. If it starts increasing, obviously you're about to lose people. And so there's these kind of intuitive things that you can do where you're following people around. Like I said, don't wait for it to get to the desk. Where you're following people around your application, watching what they do, how long it takes them to do it. Task abandonment's going to be the next thing that you're going to do, where you're watching them do something and then they like give up halfway through a workflow and never finish it. And so there's a bunch of these different flows that you're going to start following. And that's the data that you're going to use in order to predict what your churn is. Because the longer it starts taking them to do things, the less engaged they are with the platform. That's your early warning system.
Damn, that was Awesome, Vin. Thank you very much. Marco, what you?
That's really helpful. I didn't even really consider that component because I was looking at product usage, but now that you say that, I'm like, actually, I should look at like the main report that they're gonna have questions about and how long were they on that report. So that's really good. I think we have logs for those.
So when we think about that, right, that data that will be coming in, is it like I don't know what else to call it, like click stream data, I guess, or just usage data, and it's just going to be one row of data per action that the person took during the app, right? What are some like features that, one or two features you think that would be really helpful? I know you mentioned time between activities, time spent on, an activity. What are some other features we can possibly engineer from that, Vin?
It's really learning curve. That's the biggest one. And, obviously Walmart, I mean, I came up with that and figured this out on my own. So the learning curve, the shorter the learning curve for a particular feature, the more likely it is to be adopted and the more likely it is to be successful just across the board. And this is one of those where you're like, wait, this stuff's all common sense. And the first 6 months that you do this, you're going to realize that the majority of your work's kind of common sense stuff. You may not even need a model around this. What you're really trying to do with the predictive side of it is confirm your assumptions, because your customer success team probably has like these metrics that they live and die by. And what you'll end up doing is refuting a lot of those, which is going to be hard because somebody's career is baked on a dashboard someplace. And so you're going to be threatening that person's child. So
thankfully, I'm the one creating their dashboards right now, so I have that control. Thankfully.
You're good. All right, good. Yeah, and the other thing you're going to realize is that there's a lot of new metrics that they can take a look at that are, further out predictors of, and it's not just going to be churn. You also want to start predicting: are they going to re-up? Are they going to increase? Because I don't know how your pricing is, but are they going to go from one tier to the next? Is there an opportunity with some of the challenges that they're having? And this is going to be the next piece that you're going to predict. And you're going to start tying this into marketing, because you're essentially going to uncover needs before the marketing team even knows that they're there or even understands it's time to reach out to them. And it's not just going to be to prevent them from leaving. A lot of these metrics around usage, adoption, and struggle, for lack of a better term, are going to indicate business problems. And if they all of a sudden start coming off of a particular workflow, that means their workflow's changed. If they start doing different things on the system, if their usage patterns change, that's a change in business needs. And those are all indicators of it's time for marketing to reach out and to start talking to them about what's changed. And you're going to find out months before anyone else is getting this information. So it's gold. Just watch usage. And like I said, learning curves. When learning curves start getting really long, something you've implemented went sideways.
And no, that's a really good point. And like we're in like growth mode, so we're like throwing out features every other month. And so being able to track that and that learning curve component, that's a really big piece I haven't really thought of. And that's really great.
Yeah, because that learning curve piece, you'll realize quickly that when you train someone and they abandon a feature, that's like the most insightful thing that you can see is, okay, so this person knows how to use it. They used it and they went, nah. That's one of those features where you're like, I think we're killing this branch.
Yeah. And just another thing, our team has an exceptional UX researcher. I rely on her a lot. For this type of use case, how would you use a UX researcher to help you uncover kind of qualitative side of things?
Wow, that's a lot. That would be a month just by itself.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you have a UX researcher. That I've never had like access to one full time. You can ask email questions, but I've never had like full on access like that. That I don't know.
It's gold. I jump into their UX calls all the time and get uncovered like the metrics I build. I get to go on calls and see like how users are actually using it. It's terrifying to listen, but then it's also really good.
Yeah, that's a great question. That could go in I'd have to think about that, but that could go in a lot of different directions. Like I said, I've never had full access to somebody who was a UX researcher. I've had people like, who are design experts, but not like that actual research role. I've been able to ask email questions. But
and she knows how to use SQL, so she's data driven. She's like amazing.
Wow. No, that sounds great. That's a great opportunity.
Cool. Maybe make a post or YouTube video about it, and I'll watch it later.
I'll think about it. I got to think that through. I don't know, what would I ask? That'd be a long meeting. I'll tell you, that wouldn't go over.
And when you talk about workflow, I'm just trying to understand how we can like see the workflow and understand how things are moving. Is that where the Sankey diagram kind of comes in place, where you're seeing like the flow of clicks and how people are moving through the app usage? Is that like a good use case for that?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it's more than clickstream, because it's not just what they're clicking, it's what they're not that they should be. It's what they're skipping over that you expected to be part of the process. What you have to realize is you're going to have different users do the same work thing in different ways, because businesses don't actually understand their own processes. And in some businesses, there's high levels of quality, but in most businesses, 4 people doing the same thing, using the same software will do it in 2 or 3 different ways. And it really depends on, you'll find out who trained who. When you find people that do things identically, you'll be able to say, okay, senior, junior, oh, so you trained. And it's funny, the types of insights and realizations you come to. And you also get a little bit of a peek into the dysfunction behind the scenes. So when you say click through, the click stream, you're expecting a particular workflow, but the workflow is inconsistent. And so you almost have to create this net that just catches everything. And not just what did they click, but also what didn't they click that you expected them to. How long between clicks? You're actually capturing time between. And did they bounce between applications? Because yours is probably not the only one in their ecosystem. And so you'll have them bouncing between sometimes 2, 3, maybe even more different tools, copying and pasting back and forth. There's bots that you're going to have to account for, and you'll actually capture bot behavior and think it's a user, and it will be the most confusing thing you've ever seen, because you will have one just godly user flying through the system. And if you aren't expecting it, you'll be like, who is this person? And so you have bots in there too. There's not really a stream or process. You have to basically, like I said, create this net, because from client to client to client and user to user, team to team, it's going to be all over the place. And so until you have an idea of some structure, like some rules, you almost have to throw out all the rules and just say, okay, we're collecting everything until I know what I should be collecting.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Vin. Appreciate that. Eric, tell us about this resource you got right here in the chat, so that people listening can tune into that as well. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we are debuting the beardless Ben Taylor. You saw it here first.
Yeah, so Christy Worth is a data scientist at a company called Zapier, and she did a presentation a little while back. So, and Mark, this may or may not fit exactly what you need, but she did a presentation a while back about basically a bot that she built, because like what you were saying earlier, they were spending way too much time just having to figure out what tickets were about and things like that. And so she just has the presentation that I dropped here is basically an explanation of kind of how she used, Spacey and other things to create the flow for it. And then she has the code and the gist that I put there. So yeah, so if you look up Christy Worth on SlideShare or on GitHub, she definitely has some useful stuff there. So I would recommend checking it out, pilfering as you need.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Eric. So let's go to some questions we got here from LinkedIn user Akash. We'll go to Ben Taylor for this one. Akash is asking, apart from the hard skills like Python, SQL, Tableau, and ML models, what are some key things / perspective that a data scientist needs on a day-to-day basis? Any tips on how to develop such understanding / perspective? Also, can you share any daily best practices for data scientists? Let's go to the beardless Ben Taylor for this one, as opposed
Still
to
a beard. So the first part of the question, they're asking for what skills are needed outside of the basics that they led with, like SQL. Maybe just start with the opener, like the first.
apart from all the hard skills, just what are some key things that a data scientist needs on a day-to-day basis? So obviously, like, we need those tools, Python, SQL, Tableau, ML. Apart from that, like, is that all there
Yeah,
is to data
yeah.
science?
So soft skills, it's really funny. I think there can actually be different types of data scientists. So I'm amazed how many flavors there are. So you can hire a data scientist that does really, really deep research. They don't have to interact with normal people. And then you can hire a data scientist that works as like a sales engineer, where they have to meet with customers on a regular basis. And I've learned they can be useful for different things. So I guess the super skill, the super skill to appreciate would be to realize that your paychecks are not free, and you should have urgency and also a sense of mapping to value all the work that you work on. So if you build a model, you shouldn't say, look, I did my project. Like at school, you say, look, I did it. What do you think? And you should really have this obsession around value. And I think that'll play out really well in your career, because that's what people want, right? They want managers and leaders that understand that payroll's not free. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm ruined after doing a startup.
no, dude, that's actually really, really powerful. I like that your paychecks aren't free. Map everything to value. I like that. Let's hear from Eric on this one, and then after Eric, let's hear from Mark, then Vin. And again, if anybody has questions, whether in the Zoom room right here, let me know, or on any one of the platforms that we're streaming on, let me know. I'm keeping an eye out on everything. Eric, go for it.
Yeah. So one thing that came to mind fairly quickly is like the ability to think across disciplines. Because like I started off the day today with a meeting with the product manager, and we were talking about one thing, and then like right after that I dropped into the a meeting with the product marketing manager. And so it's like we're like gonna take off one hat, put on the other, and it's all about numbers, but these numbers don't, like, they kind of touch, but some of them don't. And so being able to just like think across, rather than, like, so I'm in like a matrix organization, right? And so functionally I'm in analytics, but like as far as a product vertical, it's like I'm like all small business stuff right now, and thinking in the terms of those, and being able to talk about different marketing channels. And I was just saying, mentioning to my wife like a couple of days ago, I was like, if I hadn't had any experience at all in marketing before getting into this role, I would be even more confused than I am right now, because they're throwing out terms like, SEM and display and native, and, just like these are like very general marketing terms. But if all you know is like the sliver of the analytics side of things, then you might be lost when talking across other verticals. So like I really enjoy listening to the occasional marketing podcast or sales podcast episode, even just like kind of get exposure to like terminology of other areas, because it's so helpful to like hear how other people think, and the words that are important to them, the words, topics, the metrics, all that. So that's one I'd throw out there. And I will just say Excel still has its place. I've been using Excel cube data this week so much. It has saved me a ton of time rather than writing all of my own queries. They both have their place. So I'll throw that out there as a tool that is often poo-pooed, but maybe shouldn't be.
Dave Langer, that one's for you. Yeah, I mean, those were both excellent points. So just to distill kind of what I'm hearing so far from Ben, it was just being able to move quickly with the sense of urgency and map everything that you do to some business value. And then from Eric, it was a combination of kind of understand the bigger picture and the part you play in that big picture, as well as just being able to connect different ideas from different disciplines. So I love those points. Mark, what about you?
So I was reading the comments and I completely missed the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the question from Akash here is, apart from just the hard skills, tools of the trade, SQL, Python, Tableau, so on and so forth, what are some key things or perspectives that a data scientist needs to have on a day-to-day basis? But then there's also the question tacked on after that is, any tips to develop that perspective?
I think my number one tip would be to go to Harpreet's podcast with Greg Coquillo. because the one skill that I'm like really trying to refine right now is prioritization and trying to like define like how do I connect it to a business use case and more importantly get buy-in for that. And I think the thing that really stuck out to me from that conversation you had with him was this idea of understanding not only the value but the risk associated with it and what are the key metrics of the business stakeholder that you're working with. And so I think if you can learn just to work with business stakeholders, speak their language, and understand what like drives them or maybe like pauses them, you can come up with way better solutions and prioritize all the things on top of your plate to really push the needle forward. And I 100% like whatever content Greg puts out, I just soak up because I'm like, this is exactly the problem I'm having right now. Like, just go find Greg and listen to him.
Yeah, man. Greg's freaking awesome. Where is he today, man? Where you at, Greg? But yeah, like another, like I said, this book has been amazing for me for that too. Like you combine Greg's perspective with this, and you really start to develop a product sense. Russell, let's hear from you on this as well, and then we'll go to another couple questions in link from LinkedIn. If anybody else wants to add on to this, please just let me know, and I'll hand it over to you. Go for it, Russell.
So I said in the chat, very broadly, I think some of the key soft skills for any data scientist, and in a more wider view, any role that's to do with data is tenacity and resilience, because you're going to get a lot of uncertainty, a lot of rough seas to traverse in going through this. So being set at the outset with a mindset to be tenacious and resilient and cope with those is going to be a distinct advantage. And then creativity also, I think, being able to look at something and come up with an unorthodox approach that might be better under some circumstances, or at least give them appreciation, so that you view maybe 10 different solutions and come up with the optimum one, I think is a really big advantage as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Shout out to Tom Ives, who's watching the live stream on LinkedIn, but not hanging out with us. I know Tom's busy, so thanks for joining us. Vivian, anything to add to this particular point here? There's another question he had. He's like 3 questions in one. There was a question about how to share, or do you have any daily best practices for data scientists?
Well, I just wanted to add, as far as like developing some of these skills, I would say just meet with everybody you can, like get lots of different perspectives. I guess similar to what Eric said when he was talking about how he was meeting with a project manager, and then next meeting having a meeting with somebody else, like meet with lots of different people, see how your roles interact with each other and stuff like that. I guess that would be a good way to develop some of these soft skills and be able to succeed in that.
I love it, man. So many good answers. And then I'll just tack on a little bit to that last question. Can you share any daily best practices for data science? Just read every single day. Read as much as you possibly can on things unrelated to data science, or at least things that address how data science is used in different kind of industries. Read books like Nate Silver's book Signal and the Noise, Calling Bullshit, Algorithms to Live By, systems thinking, or thinking in systems. Just read a ton. How to Be Strategic. Yes, How to Be Strategic is a epic book. That is one that I have on hand. Shout out to Fred Pellard. He autographed the book for me as well. He sent me an autographed copy all the way from England. So let's go ahead and move on. There's a question in LinkedIn coming from Twinkle. It's a cool name, by the way, Twinkle. She wants to know, the biggest challenge in data science is a feeling of overwhelm. Okay. Sometimes it gets hard to find useful insight with dealing with a lot of data. How do you overcome that? I think the first step is just to realize that there's not really always useful insight in data. Just because you have a lot of data doesn't mean that there's going to be anything actually useful in there. So when you do explore data, I think you have to proceed with a very, very open mind, because when you're exploring data, like that exploratory data analysis process is entirely between you and the data. So just don't expect any outcomes, don't expect any useful insights, and just kind of go in there with with an open mind and go for it. Ben, what do you think?
I agree. I think the data lake can be a data swamp with time suck alligators in it that can eat you. So I think sometimes people can be a little ambitious. So think of crawl, walk, run. I also have given up on data scientists being smart enough to really understand the domain completely. That's not really an insult. It's just the urgency to partner with a SME. And so if you're having a hard time finding things in the data, I would find out who's the human expert and see if you can have a session with them and talk about some of the stuff and maybe try to fish out how they would determine value rather than you. And I think that might inspire you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Let's go to Vin, and then we'll go to Mark and Eric after that. By the way, still taking questions. So if you guys have questions on either one of the social platforms, let me know. I'm keeping an eye on all of them. Vin, go for it.
I think the way that you avoid being overwhelmed is you realize that anything you didn't gather yourself or that wasn't gathered by somebody you trust, who's capable, who understands how data needs to be gathered in order to be usable in model development, in training, you can't trust any of that data. You don't know where it comes from. You don't have proper provenance behind it. You know, if you look at data that was gathered more than 4 years ago, you can almost just pick that up and throw it all in the trash. In most companies, it's more like anything 18 months or 2 years ago back, you can pretty much just forklift and get rid of because you can't trust it. And so that in my mind, that's usually where you can avoid being overwhelmed, is because you have to look at the data and just say, most of this is not going to be useful to me in building a model. Can I do analysis on it? Yeah, definitely. You can definitely analyze those massive data sets, but don't hit it with a model. You're not going to get anywhere. And what you build isn't going to be reliable. And so really what you want to explore that massive data set with mind towards is, what data should I be gathering? How should I be gathering it? What data could be available for me to gather? And that's what that massive data set's going to really tell you, is it's going to give you some analysis of this thing that you're trying to measure, this system or whatever it is that you're trying to build, this outcome. And from there, that data is just going to tell you, okay, here's what I need to start gathering. And that's how you should think about it. Don't think about, I'm going to throw 5 years worth of historical data or, 2 trillion customer records at this model and expect something cool to come out the other end. It doesn't work that way.
Eric? Is Eric frozen? He looks like he is frozen. Let's go to Mark.
I think maybe before even like choosing the right data, even going a step before, like choosing the right problem to work on. And specifically, like if you're going to choose a problem where if you only get an answer, if there is success, you're probably setting yourself up for a lot of stress. Rather choosing a problem where an answer of like something happens or like something's just not there, and that provides like information for the business stakeholders to make a decision. I feel like those are potentially better problems to work on, because I think saying like, oh yeah, there's no relationship in this data, like this is a dead end, that can be really impactful for a business stakeholder, because you can like reshift them from like wasting time. Or if there is something, then cool, that's even bonus for that. I actually really talked to my manager about this recently. My manager is like exceptional at picking the right problems. To give context, the 11 months I've been there, she's had ideas, and four of them have become actual product features, which is like insane to like have that level of like home runs back to back to back. And I asked her like, how do you do this so well and consistently? And she's basically said 2 steps. She talks to business stakeholders constantly and listens to their pain points, and specifically listens to, I wish this was this, or this happened this way. And then from there, she like curates all these ideas and finds the patterns and like identifies the high impact idea. Then she identifies the data and builds a 2-week proof of concept to see if it's possible. And then from there, she's like off to the races. And so from the get-go, she chose the right problem, so she's not overwhelmed by the different multiple ends. She curated a really good problem to work on, and then verified that you could work on it. And then in those 2 steps, she like got rid of a lot of the fluff and just zoning in on exactly what to prioritize.
Man, thank you so much for sharing that, Mark. That's some great insight. That actually answers the follow-up kind of tack-on question Twinkle had there about how to proceed with understanding a business problem. So thank you very much for that. Eric, I can't tell if you're still frozen or not. No, you're not frozen, so go for it.
Okay, I think I'm unfrozen. Yeah, so I was just gonna say, one, following what Vin said, like it doesn't always need to be like modeled. Something doesn't always need to be modeled. You might just be able to find interesting insights. I've been feeling that recently, and at the end of the day, maybe it's just not the best thing to do. And the other thing was, if you're stuck, ask somebody else for their perspective on it. Like you don't get bonus points for doing it all by yourself. Like that's why there are other people around. I had to do that a few days ago. I just connected with one of my coworkers, was like, hey, before I show this to somebody else, like, does this make sense? Or am I just missing something big and I'm going to look stupid? And he's like, no, like basically you're seeing like a potential gain of like 0.3% of something, which in this case would be very, 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 very tiny. It's like, so no, you're good. And so that was just like really helpful to just kind of get a sanity check from another person whose judgment I trust.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. There's a lot of good insights there. I'm definitely going to be enjoying running this back and taking notes off the last few minutes. Thank you for those great questions, Twinkle. Hopefully you found some value in those answers. I know I most certainly did. Any follow-up points from anyone? Let me know. If anybody has questions, go ahead and let me know in the chat as well. Also, shout out to Eric Gitonga. Eric and J. Raj Parmar helped me tremendously with getting the votes cleaned and counted and set for the Data Community Content Creators Awards, which is live on LinkedIn on Tuesday. So both of those gentlemen came at it from 2 perspectives, had answers that matched each other. So had that independent verification, third-party verification there. So you can't say I just voted for all my friends, guys. Any other questions? I don't see any questions coming from LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitch. Any questions right here in the chat? Go for it if anybody wants.
I was just going to share something with the group. So that rock star at NVIDIA, I think her name is pronounced Enema. So she's like that deep learning AGI researcher. So I had an opportunity to talk to her last week, and she was, I think sometimes with deep learning, storytelling, we think it's getting better and better and better and better. And we have topics and there's all these great things we can tell you, all sorts of things about how awesome our models were. And she was pointing out that if we do reach AGI, if we have AGI, there's no way that humans can understand it. Because you can imagine if I hand you like an 80 billion or a trillion parameter model that's initialized, and if it runs off, it'll actually be a product of this experience, just like we are. So imagine like if I was able to truly create a clone of me, they'd be 2 completely different people because of experience. So I never thought of that even if we create AGI and we all agree, and she also brought that up, she said, we might create it, but we will never all agree that we made it. Where I could like convince my parents this year that I had AGI, but whether or not I convince everyone on the call, does that make sense? But I just thought those are 2 neat things. So first thing, we won't be able to understand it. And then I forgot the final point, but anyway, it's been a long week.
So that's very interesting. So we won't be able to understand it, like you mentioned, because so many different billion parameters.
And the only way to understand it is you'd have to experience what it experienced. So it's like the only way to be me is you have to experience what I did in my life. So those are 2 things I haven't thought of.
I mean, it kind of makes sense in a way, right? Because like I don't know what it's like to be Ben Taylor. I don't know what it's like to be any one of you guys, and we've all had a set of experiences. Although I'm sure Mark and I have very similar sets of experiences coming from like the exact same part of Sacramento. But yeah, that's interesting. Vin, what do you think?
What do I think about just AI in general or AGI in general?
Yeah, just kind of riffing off of Ben's insight there.
I mean, I think we give ourselves too much credit. And I know this is the contrarian view on AGI, but we already have ML that's way smarter than people. And so if the bar is indistinguishable from us, AGI is going to be better than us. So why are we even doing this standard? We give ourselves a little bit too much credit. And, we say AGI has to do all of these different hoops and jumps. And no, most people that you run into can't do all the hoops that we're putting in front of AGI, especially when it comes to, generalizing to multiple problems. Most people are terrible at that. Most people are really horrible at going from one problem to a problem that they haven't seen a whole lot and being successful at it. And so when we talk about AGI, I'm thinking, we give ourselves too much credit and think we're too good at the things that we're really not that great at. And so at some point, if we want to talk about AGI, it's like, why? What is the point of getting to AGI? Do we just want something that we can't tell the difference from us? I mean, is that really is that the goal? We just want us again? Because, we can do that. Like, we can have kids. So why don't we go for something that's a little bit more productive than this concept that we have of AGI? Like I said, I think we give ourselves too much credit and say that we're the bar, and then we set the bar 10 times higher than we actually are. And AGI is never going to reach that bar because we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to teach kids to be as smart as we want AGI to be. So how are we supposed to train the model to do that? We can't understand why kids do what they do. Why are we trying to you want to explain AGI? I can't explain my daughter. I can't. So, we put these standards out there and it just doesn't make any sense. AGI to me is one of those standards where it's like, we really need to be talking about something different, because I don't understand where AGI fits in any sort of business context.
I was going to say, I think the hope for AGI would be you send a droid to Mars, and you actually don't have to tell it every single thing you have to do because like the bottleneck that we have, or I forget how many minutes it takes. So I think it's more independence, but I don't know. I guess that is a gray line, because if I have a useful droid that'll go do missions, you can imagine as that droid levels up in its education, eventually goes to college and then publishes 10,000 white papers in a day. Suddenly, you can't deliver that next week, but you can imagine the slow white to gray, and then eventually we just I don't really know when it happened. Not that we'll be alive for anything that interesting. I was super excited about the Mars, having the Mars rover be completely autonomous, where it knows the missions it's going to go do, and it doesn't really need you to drive it anywhere. It's like, I got this. Because that feels like the next version of an autonomous vehicle. It's a little bit more curious, right? Autonomous vehicles aren't really curious.
And that's interesting there. That's interesting. Yeah.
Comment here from Tom, and he's listening in on LinkedIn. He said it's like the episode on Star Trek where Riker was split into two copies. They started to differ as soon as they had different experiences. And then Robert Robinson says, when the robots take over, our society will turn into the world described in Terminator or WALL-E. Robot revolution is already here, man. It's already happened. They're just packed in data centers for space, heat, and efficiency reasons. The robots are already here, man. Does not look like there's any other questions. There's a question that was came in on YouTube from Farhan Naqvi, but he redacted it. His question was essentially one of the flavors of, I'm a second-year student in college trying to get into FANG. What projects must I do? That's been covered on this podcast. Go look at some previous episodes. We cover that topic quite frequently. All of the projects, Eric says, just do all of them. No, just do two, man. Just do two. One to kind of showcase your superpower, and one to kind of showcase your ability just to do stuff. Just do things that are fun and interesting to you. I think last week Eric was talking about, just doing projects that were just interesting and fun and enjoyable for him. So any other questions or comments from anybody here? Shout out to everybody else in the chat: Florin, Naresh, Eric.
I'll throw something out there.
Yeah,
so I don't know if any of y'all saw today, Dear Intern was trending on Twitter. And then I also saw it posted on LinkedIn too. So since we're a lot of us, I mean, I'm new in a job and making silly mistakes, and a lot of people are like trying to break in and things like that. So yes, thank you. Yes, Florence hip like me. And looking at Dear Intern. So Dear Intern is trending because an intern at HBO Max accidentally sent out a test email template to a bunch of people from on the HBO Max mailing list. And it was nothing like scandalous or anything. It was just a mistake made by a large scale company. And HBO Max like made a nice little tweet saying, we're helping them through it, no big deal. But it just happened, right? And the whole thread, like a bazillion people are like, Dear Intern, all these crazy things that I did when I was an intern, or this person's like, I dropped a production database when I was a senior engineer. Like it happens. Like, fortunately, that's why we have backups, human resilience, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I just like it because one, it's just like embracing like humanity. Here we are, like just it's okay. Secondly, it also shows why it's important to plan for human error when you are doing anything that you're doing in your work. And then also, it's also just really healthy. I was laughing so hard as I was reading through some of the examples. So, get a good reason to laugh and enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess you could sum the moral of that story up as Dear Intern, you're human. It's okay.
Exactly.
Like, shit happens, man.
More to come.
Yeah, it's not like you're gonna be recognized in job interviews. Like, hey, aren't you that intern that just spammed the entire mailing list with a template? Ben, let's go to you.
I had a story to share. So, Dear Intern, when I was working at Intel and Micron, I was working fab work at night. I realized I could work all night and ski all day. I'm like, this is genius. I'll work all night, I'll ski all day, and I'll sleep in the car on the way to go skiing with my friends. And one night I made a mistake in the fab. So we're looking at images where the scanning electron microscope has measured lines. So it's done computer vision, it's measured lines on the circuits. And there was this distinction. Is this a gap, or is this a space or a line? What are we measuring? And I was one of the engineers reviewing it, and I made a decision. That was the wrong decision. I came in the next day, and they're like, "Oh shit, Ben, like you're in trouble." I think it ended up costing like $40,000 or $50,000, which is actually not. That sounds awful, but I knew people with like $1 million mistakes, and they wrote me up for fatigue. So it was totally like me skiing all day and working all night. That isn't a good idea. But I just thought that was funny anyway. Not an intern mistake, but just like, come on, you can't ski all day.
Can't ski all day and then not sleep and do heavy engineering. That's not healthy. I'd love to hear from anybody else here if they have any Dear Intern stories. I mean, I think might have been like more than 5 or 6 weeks ago, several weeks ago, probably 2-3 months ago at this point, we had that one a session where we opened with just our biggest mess ups. So that entire episode was like a Dear Intern type episode. But yeah, it looks like there are no other questions. Tom's still in LinkedIn chat for some reason. I don't know why he hasn't came into the room yet. But I think we can begin to wrap it up, guys. Hope you guys get a chance to tune into the podcast episode that was released today. Jamie Woodhouse talked about sentientism. I was kind of all over LinkedIn Live today, so hopefully you got a chance to hear me just rant and ramble about things. Definitely not as OG as some of the folks here, Ben, Vin. I love hearing you guys' stories, man. I love hearing about all the crazy stuff you guys do, like Mark, all your stories. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's somebody asked a question in one of the live streams. It was something to the effect of like, what did you learn from experts that you didn't learn or didn't know already? And my response was just what mistakes not to make, because they're just sharing with us the things that they've done, or they're sharing their experiences so we can kind of learn from that. So I think that's true. Definitely comes through here in this session. All right, so it does not look like there's any other questions. I think that's stalled enough. Friends, thank you so much for hanging out. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here today. Don't forget, tune into the podcast, catch me on some of the live streams. And again, man, happy to have you guys here. Remember, you've got one life on this planet. Why not try to do something big? Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, Harpreet, for doing this.